My wife left me for the streets after she got her hot summer body. 2 years later, she's begging to come back after the same streets have shown her their true colors. Hi, my name is Corey. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and stick around till the end because trust me, this story is crazy. You see, 2 years ago, I was the kind of man who believed love could survive anything. Distance, hardship, or even temptation. I thought if you gave your best, that's all it took to keep a marriage alive. I was wrong. I learned that sometimes love doesn't die because someone stops trying. It dies because one person starts believing they deserve more than what built them. My wife, Gemma, used to be my world. We were quiet people from Jackson, Mississippi. We both lived a simple life, no luxury, minimal drama. Just steady love. Until one day she changed on the outside first, and then slowly on the inside. And when opportunity came knocking, in the form of a shiny new job in Atlanta, the city of lights and music, mixed with endless attention, she opened that door without looking back. At first, I thought we'd grow together. But Atlanta has a way of testing people, especially those who've never had the spotlight before. 2 years later, after everything that happened, the separation, the silence, the heartbreak, she called me. Out of nowhere. Said she wanted to talk. I'll tell you how that call went, what she said, and what I told her that ended it all for good. Because when a person trades home for the streets, they always find out the hard way. The streets never love you back. Before everything went sideways, life in Jackson was simple. Peaceful even. We lived in a quiet neighborhood where the loudest thing you'd hear after dark was the hum of crickets or the neighbor's TV leaking through an open window. It was the kind of place where people waved from their porches, and everybody knew who baked the best cornbread on the block. I worked as a high school history teacher. The kind of job that didn't make you rich, but kept you grounded. I loved it. I loved watching kids who barely cared about school suddenly light up when history started sounding like real life. Gemma worked at a small dental clinic across town. She was the front desk face everybody loved, soft-spoken and kind. Back then, Gemma was around 5 feet 6 inches, maybe 180 pounds, curvy, thick in all the right places. She carried herself like a woman who knew she was loved, even if she didn't fully believe it yet. I think deep down, she wanted more, not out of greed, but out of curiosity. She wanted to feel something different. I noticed it in the small things, her scrolling through Instagram longer than usual, watching fitness influencers and travel couples. Or when she'd pause at the mirror, tug at her blouse, and say, "I really need to start working out. I'm adding a lot of weight." I'd tell her she was beautiful the way she was, and I meant it. But the more I said it, the less she seemed to believe it. Gemma had been in a bit of a slump, not the kind you notice all at once, but the kind that sneaks in quietly. She'd come home from work, drop her purse, and just sit on the couch in silence. An exhaustive silence. At first, I thought it was just the stress of work, but it ran deeper. She wasn't laughing as much, wasn't cooking like she used to, wasn't even singing along to the radio on our drives. She'd gained maybe 15 pounds over a few years, nothing drastic, but it changed how she saw herself. One night, she stood in front of the mirror for what felt like forever, then sighed and said, "I don't even recognize myself anymore." I did what any husband who loves his wife would do. I told her we could fix it together. I suggested the gym, said maybe it would help her clear her mind. At first, she gave me that side eye like, "You trying to call me out?" But a week later, she surprised me. She got us both memberships. Those first few weeks were brutal. We were huffing on treadmills, fumbling with weights like amateurs. But something changed around the second month. She started smiling again, that old spark coming back to her eyes. Then she started going without me, saying she liked doing her own thing. I didn't think much of it. I was proud, honestly. The results came fast. By the 4th month, she'd dropped almost 30 pounds. Her face looked slimmer, and her confidence came back in waves. She bought new clothes, started experimenting with her hair, and for the first time in a while, I felt like I had my wife back. Our intimacy came roaring back, too. She'd catch me looking at her and grin like she was rediscovering herself through my eyes. For a while, life was good again. But soon, her focus shifted. The gym wasn't just about mental health anymore. It became her world. New friends, group classes, meal plans, Instagram reels. She was transforming, not just physically, but socially. And even though I was proud, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was waking up in her. Something that wanted more than what Jackson could offer. The town that once felt too small for her was starting to suffocate her again. And soon enough, Atlanta would come calling, ready to give her all the attention she thought she was missing. The offer came out of nowhere. Some marketing firm out of Atlanta had seen Gemma's work online, her knack for organization and her people skills, and they wanted her on their team. It was supposed to be remote at first, but a few weeks in, they offered her a full-time position at their branch office in Atlanta. Better pay and benefits. Even bigger opportunities. She came home that evening, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen since before her slump. "Corey, this could be it," she said, practically bouncing as she spoke. "It's a chance to start fresh. New city, new people, new everything." I smiled, but deep down I felt uneasy. Atlanta was 5 hours away, and Jackson had been home all our lives. Our church was there. My students were there. Our memories were buried in that red Mississippi soil. "Baby, that's a big move," I told her. "We don't know anybody there. Cost of living's higher. It's not going to be like here." She just gave me that look, half challenge, half conviction. "We need to grow, Corey. Don't you get it? I'm tired of watching life happen to other people." That line stuck with me, because at that moment, I realized she wasn't talking about us anymore. She was talking about herself. So I gave in, packed up our life into boxes, said goodbye to the only place I'd ever called home, and followed my wife to Atlanta, believing foolishly that we were still chasing the same dream. Atlanta hit different from day one. The skyline, the pace, the endless sound, horns, laughter, music spilling from bars even on weekdays. You could feel the city buzzing like it had something to prove. Gemma loved it instantly. By the first weekend, she'd found a new gym, upscale, full of young professionals, fitness influencers, and people who treated working out like religion. She'd come home talking about this coworker or that trainer, showing me pictures from rooftop brunches with names I'd never heard before. Me? I picked up a teaching job at a charter school on the south side. The pay wasn't bad, but the bills came faster than I could keep up. Rent alone was double what we paid in Jackson. Traffic was chaos. The city never stopped moving, and somehow I felt like I was standing still. Gemma, though, was glowing. Her new coworkers took her to networking mixers, fitness events, art shows. Her Instagram followers started doubling. She'd post pictures from brunches with captions like, "New city, new energy." At first, I tried to keep up. I went with her to a few of those after-work parties, but I always felt out of place, standing in a crowd of smooth-talking strangers who kept asking what I did for fun. All I could think was, I used to come home to her smile. That used to be enough. Soon, she started going without me. "Just co-workers," she'd say. But she'd come back later and later, perfume still fresh, laughter still in her voice. At home, things shifted quietly. We used to eat dinner together every night. Now I'd text her to ask if she was coming home, and she'd reply hours later with, "Sorry, lost track of time." Her phone never left her hand. Her smile was always for the screen. She started dressing differently too, sleeker, bolder, and even tighter. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was that I couldn't shake off the feeling that she wasn't dressing for me anymore. I tried to bring it up once, told her I felt like she was slipping away. But she laughed it off. "Corey, not everything's that deep. You're just not used to city life." Maybe she was right. But deep down, I knew the truth. Atlanta hadn't just given her a new job. It had given her a new identity. I still remember one night, the night it hit me hardest. I'd made her favorite, shrimp and grits, set the table, dimmed the lights. She texted that she'd be home by 8. 8 turned to 10, and 10 became midnight. By the time she walked through the door, she was tipsy, glowing, and full of stories about a rooftop party overlooking downtown. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at her untouched plate, the city lights flickering through the blinds. Outside, the noise of Atlanta filled the silence she'd left behind. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt completely alone, even with her just a room away. Atlanta has a way of speeding up everything, even the fall of a marriage. What used to be laughter between us turned into long silences. Little disagreements started stretching into full-blown arguments, and before long, it felt like we were living on opposite sides of the same house. It started with small things. She'd come home late, and when I'd ask how her day went, she'd shrug, scrolling through her phone instead of looking at me. If I pressed, she'd sigh and say, "Corey, you don't have to be so insecure. It's just work." Insecure. That word stung more than she knew. Because once upon a time, She used to ask me about everything, from which dress looked better for church to what color we should paint the kitchen. Now, my opinions didn't matter. She had a whole new circle to validate her. New co-workers, gym friends, social media followers. They became her audience, and I was just a quiet man in the background of her story. Then came the posts. Photos of her at rooftop brunches, smiling with a cocktail in hand, surrounded by people I'd never met. She looked stunning, no doubt, but she never tagged me, not once. It was as if I didn't exist. At one of her work events, I saw her laughing with a guy from her office, hand brushing his arm, that easy, carefree smile she used to give me. And maybe it was harmless. But watching it felt like standing outside your own life, knocking on the window while someone else lives it better than you. Atlanta didn't just change her address, it changed her reflection. The woman who once found joy in quiet moments now craved eyes on her. Everywhere we went, she had to be seen, new hair, new dresses, new version of herself. I suggested counseling. I thought maybe a neutral voice could help us find our way back. She laughed, not cruelly, but like it was absurd. Corey, there's nothing wrong with us. You're just overthinking everything. But I wasn't. I was watching the woman I loved slowly drift into someone I didn't recognize. The whole issue came to a climax when she came home smelling of a different cologne that wasn't mine. I confronted her, and she brushed off my concerns as usual, and that did it for me. The next morning, I packed a small bag, just the essentials, and wrote her a note. I hope you find whatever it is you're chasing. No fight or long speech. Just quiet acceptance. When she came home and saw I was gone, she didn't call. Not even a text. She didn't even show up at my job the next day. Not that I expected her to. She let me go, just like that. And in her silence, I could tell what she never had the courage to say out loud. She wasn't sad I'd left. She was relieved. Relieved that the old life she'd outgrown had finally packed its bags and driven away. The first few months after I left were a blur. I rented a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, nothing fancy. For the first time in years, the silence was mine. I went back to my routines, early mornings, lesson plans, little walks before sunrise. I was trying to remember who I was before I became half of us. At first, I thought she'd call. Maybe to ask if I was okay, or to say she missed me. But weeks passed. Nothing. For months later, I filed for divorce. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I finally realized I was the only one still trying to hold on. That's when the rumors started. A friend from church, one of the few who still kept in touch, told me Gemma was seeing someone new. A man named Malik. You couldn't miss him if you tried, a smooth talker. He owned a car dealership and was always posting pictures in tailored suits, champagne in hand, and captioning things like "work hard, play harder." At first, I brushed it off. But then I saw the pictures. Her pictures. There she was on his boat, smiling under the sun. At brunches, hand in hand. Same woman who used to spend her Sundays in sweatpants and head wraps, now posing like she'd stepped out of a magazine. She was living the ATL life. And that's when it hit me. Watching her smile beside another man felt like mourning someone still alive. I'd scroll through those photos at night, trying to convince myself I was over her, trying to believe the version of her I once loved still existed somewhere under all that glitter. But the truth? That woman was gone. Still, she wouldn't sign the papers. For months, it dragged on. Her lawyer said she was reviewing the terms. Reviewing what? We had nothing to split but memories. Maybe she liked the power, knowing that I was still waiting. Or maybe she just didn't care enough to finish what she started. Then one morning, almost a year after I'd left, I got a mail envelope with her neat handwriting on the corner. Inside were the signed divorce papers. No note. No message. Just a final signature that told me she'd finally moved in with Malik and moved on with her life. Funny thing, I thought I'd feel free, but what I felt was empty. Not the kind of empty that hurts, the kind that accepts. I remember staring at those papers, thinking, is this what peace looks like? Or just the quiet that comes after losing everything? And I want to ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you still hold out hope? Would you fight for someone who didn't fight for you? Because me? I'd reached the point where I realized that love without respect is just punishment in disguise. I folded the papers, placed them in a drawer, and whispered the only goodbye that ever felt right. Sometimes walking away is the only way to stay sane. And if you've ever had to let go of someone who already left you in their heart, you know exactly what that means. 2 years. That's how long it had been since I'd heard her voice. Life had finally leveled out. I'd moved into a smaller but nicer apartment, started teaching at a new school, even picked up hiking on weekends. Peace had become my new luxury. No drama, no guessing, no pretending. Just quiet days and honest nights. I have been single for the most part, save for one ill-fated fling with a fellow teacher at the school I work in. I hadn't thought about Gemma in months, not really. Every now and then, her name would cross my mind, like an old song I used to love but couldn't listen to anymore. Then one Tuesday afternoon, out of nowhere, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, until I heard the voice on the other end. "Hey Corey, it's me." For a second, I didn't say anything. Her tone was soft, uncertain, not the confident woman I remembered. I leaned back in my chair, heart steady. "Well, I'll be damned. Look who remembered my number." She laughed lightly, but it was forced. "I just wanted to check in. See how you've been. Men after 2 years?" I said, "That's some long-distance concern." There was silence, just her breathing through the line. And in that silence, I could feel the tension, heavy, nervous, rehearsed. If we hadn't been out of touch this long, I'd have thought she was about to tell me she was pregnant. That's how random it felt. Finally, I asked the only thing that made sense. "What do you want, Gemma?" She hesitated. I could hear it in the pause, the shallow inhale, the swallow before the words. "I was hoping we could meet. Maybe talk in person." I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to hang up, protect the peace I'd worked so hard to build. But another part, the part that still remembered the woman she used to be, needed closure. So I said, "All right. Name the place." As I hung up, one thought crossed my mind. Whatever this was about, it wasn't small talk. And deep down, I already knew this meeting was going to change everything one last time. We met at a quiet coffee shop in Midtown, one of those calm little corners where people go to escape the noise of the city. When I walked in, I spotted her instantly. She was sitting by the window, nursing a half-empty cup, fidgeting with the sleeve of her jacket. Still beautiful, that much hadn't changed, but the glow was gone. Her face looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. For a moment, I just stood there watching her. 2 years ago, this same woman had walked out of my life without looking back. And now, here she was waiting on me. When she saw me, she smiled, small, nervous, unsure. "Hey, Corey," she said softly. "Hey, Gemma." I took the seat across from her. The silence that followed was thick enough to chew through. She looked down at her cup, then at me. "You look good." "Thanks, a peaceful life would do that to you." "You don't look bad yourself either," I said. She nodded, as if she understood what that meant. "I've missed talking to you," she whispered. I leaned back, arms crossed. "Oh, really? Then maybe you should have thought about that before you stopped." That shut her up for a second. She bit her lip, then sighed. "I deserve that." "Yeah," I said quietly. "You do." We sat there in awkward silence for a moment before I decided to help her out. "So what's this really about, Gemma? Because you didn't ask to meet just to talk about the weather." She hesitated, eyes darting toward the window. "I was wondering, or rather I just wanted to see you. How are you really? I know I hurt you back then. I was a terrible person and coming to a new city, reinventing myself. I lost sight of all the things that made sense and mattered. I'm here to say I'm sorry." I raised a brow. Something fishy is going on here. There's no way she came all this way just to apologize. So I said it. "It's Malik, right? What happened? He cheat on you? You find out he has a wife? What is it? Because that seems to be the recurring theme in Atlanta here." Her eyes widened, a mix of shock and shame. "You're right to gloat if you want," she said quietly. "I deserve it. But one thing I've always held close to heart now is that no one is above character development. I've learned the hard way." I didn't say anything, I just waited. She drew in a shaky breath and finally looked me in the eye. "When I left Jackson, I thought I was finding myself. I thought Atlanta was going to give me everything I was missing: attention, excitement, self-validation. But all it gave me was noise. And Malik, he was just another part of that noise." She paused, voice trembling. "He wasn't who I thought he was. None of them were. I thought I'd found myself, Corey, but I only lost everything that mattered." Her eyes watered as she reached for my hand across the table. "I'm not asking for pity. I miss us. I miss the way things used to be. I'd give anything to go back. I'll pay any price, suffer any punishment. Just let me try again. Please." Her hand stayed there, trembling. For a moment, I just looked at it. All those memories came rushing back. Our porch talks, her laughter, the nights I waited up while she was out living her new life. I took a slow breath and pulled my hand back. Gemma, I started, keeping my voice calm. I'm not your husband anymore. She blinked, tears spilling now. I know, but we could at least try. I know I'm asking so much from you right now, and I have absolutely no right to even request this of you. But if you could just… No, I said, firmer this time. You put me through hell just to satisfy your ego. You made me question my worth, my sanity, everything we built together. And now, after you've been out there living the life you thought you wanted, you come back because the streets got cold. Her lips parted, but I didn't give her the chance. You think you can eat your cake and have it too? That you can just walk back and like none of it happened? You're delusional, Gemma. If not anything else, you're delusional. The words came sharper now, not shouted, but heavy with everything I'd held back for years. I was good to you. Gemma, we had a simple, loyal life. You traded it for validation and brunch photos. You wanted to see what the world had to offer. Well, now you've seen it. The streets don't love nobody, Gemma. They never do. She broke then, full tears, shaking her head, whispering, I know, Corey. I know. I was stupid. I stood up, slid a few bills under my coffee cup, and said quietly, I hope you find peace the same way I did. But there's no coming back together for us. That train has long left the station, and there's no coming back. Then I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. There was no need to. Behind me, the soft sound of her sobs blended with the low hum of the cafe, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely free. Driving home that night, the city lights felt softer than usual. Maybe it was the quiet after the storm, or maybe it was just the sound of peace finally settling in my chest. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel angry. Not at her or what she did. Not even at how it ended. I just felt done. All that weight I'd been carrying, the resentment, the questions, the unspoken what-ifs, it was gone. I'd said everything I needed to say. And hearing her admit what I already knew didn't bring satisfaction. It brought closure. Gemma's doing fine career-wise. She's still in marketing, got her own apartment, drives something newer than mine. But I could tell from her eyes, love hasn't gone well for her. She's still chasing something she can't name, something she once had but didn't value. And I don't wish her bad luck. I just wish her peace. Because truth is, Atlanta didn't break our marriage. Pride did. The kind of pride that makes you believe love isn't enough unless the world is watching you receive it. I've learned that when someone loses gratitude, they lose sight of the blessing standing right beside them. And that's how love dies, not with arguments, not with infidelity, but with quiet unthankfulness. As I drove past Piedmont Park, I saw couples walking hand in hand, laughing under the streetlights. For a second, I smiled. Not out of envy, but understanding. They looked how we once did, before ambition turned into comparison, before validation replaced affection. I parked outside my apartment, turned off the engine, and sat there for a moment. You know, sometimes the best revenge isn't anger. It's healing so completely that their apology no longer matters. If you've listened this far, you're probably someone who believes in loyalty, growth, and the kind of love that doesn't need the spotlight. So if that's you, hit that subscribe button. But if you're the type who lies, cheats, or runs when things get hard, you probably won't. Because stories like this hit a little too close to home. Either way, I'll be here, telling the truth, one story at a time.